Hi, I'm Caliban. Today we're going to talk about pre-orders, and I think the best way we can get involved is to start with a little story. So let me set the scene. There was a game that you loved when you were a bit younger. For the sake of this particular story, let's call it Discombobulators. 7 long years have passed and finally they've announced that Discombobulators 2 is under production. You count down the days and then just before the game is released you jump on the hype train. You watch some videos, listen to some creators talk about how great the discombobulated expanded universe is, and then the pre-order is announced and you rush to make a purchase. Finally the day arrives and you load the game up the second it unlocks. You watch a load of opening cutscenes, spend ages on your character creation, play through the tutorial missions and then get stuck into the game proper, which unfortunately for you is pretty bad. So bad in fact that the next steps are predictable. The exact problems are never the same, but they tend to follow a pattern. Maybe it doesn't have the same charm or level of detail found in the first game. Maybe its themes are different or it's poorly executed, or it's just so full of bugs that the experience is totally unenjoyable. Now the problem is that you've been working under the premise that pre-ordering is a good thing for you. This is understandable as it totally used to be. You see, back in the old days before we had digital distribution, you had to buy your games, music and videos from a traditional store. When one of these products was finished, the master disc would be sent off to some factory somewhere. Their job would be to make copies of all the masters, pop them into printed boxes or cases, and then ship them back to the publisher so they could be distributed out to all of the retailers. This was problematic. If a game didn't sell as well as a retailer hoped or expected, they would often be left responsible for loads of unsold copies. They were then forced to either sell them at a discount or offload them to a liquidator to attempt to reclaim some of the losses. In some cases, the retailer might have a better deal with the publisher in which they could return any unsold copies for a refund, but this was in no way the norm. If performance was poor, the retailers definitely wouldn't reorder any more, so between that and possible returns the publisher could be left holding many thousands of unsold copies of a game that no one wanted. When a publisher found themselves with a stock room rammed full of unsold games and no interested customers, they had but one recourse: throw them away. The most famous of these disposals led to something known as the Atari video game graveyard, where some 700,000 or more copies of the highly unpopular ET and other software and hardware were unceremoniously dumped in a landfill site, somewhere in New Mexico. However, this wasn't the only potential problem back then. If a game was wildly more popular than expected, the shelves could be emptied in minutes and many potential sales could be lost. It takes time to print, package and ship physical copies out to retailers, and by the time you've gone through all that, you might find that people have got bored of the wait or spent their money on something else. Pre-orders were one solution to both of these particular problems. It gave the industry some indication of how popular a game was likely to be so they could better match supply with demand. It also offered some protection to both publishers and retailers from becoming insolvent due to a miscalculation in requirements, and prevented a lot of potential landfill too. More importantly to us gamers, it ensured if there was a particular title we were really interested in, we could reserve a copy so we didn't arrive at a retail store to find empty shelves and leave with empty hearts. In the modern digital world, this problem doesn't really exist for gamers anymore. It's true that a few stores still carry what looks like traditional media, but this generally consists of generic DVD cases with a printed insert cover and a small card with a product code inside. In most cases, all of our games are purchased 100% digitally, and publishers don't have to concern themselves with any of the old distribution problems that we previously mentioned. For the same reasons, nor do we. If we want a game, we buy it downloads, and we've got it. No matter how popular the game becomes, we never have to worry about missing out again. So why do publishers still want us to pre-order? Well, technically they don't, as pre-order doesn't really exist for digital media anymore. If you go back carefully and look at something on the Steam store, you'll notice it doesn't actually say pre-order, it says pre-purchase. The entire purpose of pre-ordering was to gauge anticipation of demand and reserve copies, and now that both of these concepts are totally outdated in the digital world, it serves zero purpose for the most important of all parties involved, the end user, or in other words, us. For the publisher it still makes sense. If you can convince someone to give you the money ahead of time, then even if your product's bad, you still profit. When you pre-purchase, you essentially decide to ignore all of the information that can be gained from reviews, ratings and word of mouth and jump headfirst into the experience without a great deal of recourse. Some would argue that it's not a big problem because you can just refund a game on Steam, but there are plenty of cases where that argument falls flat. Firstly, Steam is not the only distributor of games, and although I do play most of my games through Steam, I've still got about 3 or 4 other platforms installed because there are a couple of games on each that I wanted to play. Even if you do stick to Steam for all of your game buying needs, there are plenty of cases where it still might be problematic. Maybe the initial part of the game was really promising, but it went rapidly downhill from there. Maybe you played it for a while on your laptop, but it failed to work on your home PC. Or maybe there were some game-breaking bugs in later missions that made the thing totally worthless. My point is that it's not always possible to come to a proper conclusion about a game after only a couple of hours. When a publisher is saddled with a game that they think is going to be poorly received, they have every incentive to encourage you to pre-purchase. They are banking on the fact that the days or weeks that pass before the release date is reached will distance you from the financial transaction, and the idea of a refund won't arrive into your mind until the window of opportunity has passed. This is akin to a lot of subscription services with an auto-renew policy, especially those that have a discount on your initial purchase. EA know that when they do a special offer on EA Play for $1, that you'll forget to unsubscribe before it auto-renews for $4.99. This is the oldest trick in the book, and it's been used by magazine subscriptions and dating sites for decades. People have a lot of things on their mind, they're forgetful and they're lazy, and the chances are you'll get many months of renewal out of a customer before they finally get around to cancelling, even if they're not using the service. It's worth remembering that the Steam refund system is not designed for you to trial new products, and if you use it as such, you may find yourself being refused. They specifically state in their terms and conditions that if it appears you are abusing the refund system, we reserve the right to revoke access to this feature. I've seen plenty of posts on Reddit where someone has been using the refund system as effectively a free demo feature, and if you keep doing that, Steam customer service will warn you that future refunds might be refused. I think the truth is that most people don't even attempt to refund a bad game, especially if it's one that they've highly anticipated. Instead, they put it down and aim to try it again in the future, assuming they just aren't in the mood for it right now or maybe need more time to properly understand it. Refunding every product they don't immediately fall in love with just isn't how these people operate, and I think I'm probably one of those people. I have used the Steam refund system once or twice before, but only if the product was actually faulty rather than just bad. Buying any sort of product before it's been tested and reviewed by those you trust in the industry is always a dangerous prospect, and I just don't think it makes any sense when it comes to digital delivery. With physical products, I can totally understand it. There are plenty of reasons why you would want to reserve a very desirable item, and pre-ordering in those situations is a direct benefit to you. But with digital delivery, the only people that stand to benefit are the publishers, who get to keep your money even if their product is way below your expectations. Some companies will attempt to sweeten the deal with a pre-sale by including some additional bonuses. I think with Diablo 4 I got a skin for a horse which ended up to be totally useless, as I was bored of the game before I really got to ride one. They will probably also offer you a deluxe pre-order package that contains a season pass at what looks like a slightly reduced rate. If you really think about it, this is complete madness. Not only are they asking you to purchase a game that you've got no idea if it's any good, but also additional content they've not even created yet. If the game flops, chances are you'll never even see that DLC, and if the game is bad, the DLC will be even worse. If you do get a price reduction from a pre-purchase, it's normally not that impressive, and is probably of less magnitude than if you were to wait a while for a Steam sale or purchase it from a discounter. Before we wrap this up, I want to differentiate between pre-purchases and something like early access or crowdfunded games, as they shouldn't be tarred with the same brush. Essentially, these purchase methods are a kind of investment, and when you support a project in this way, you are gambling on the fact that the funds provided by you, and others like you, will result in a desirable product. When you invest in something, whether it's a game, a kitchen gadget or a business, failure is always a possible outcome, but one you understand, and generally you do get significant discounts or other features that make the proposition a lot more attractive. Pre-purchases are not this, and by the time the pre-purchase is available, the game has already been funded, designed and mostly developed, and as an end user, there aren't really any benefits at all. There are a few instances where the opening days of a game or the beta test period are great fun and something you do want to experience, but I find this is mostly limited to MMORPGs. I've found in some of these games that their communal explorative nature combined with an untested product can create some really unique experiences that I've found very enjoyable. However, for the majority of games, especially those that are heavily focused on the single player, things tend to get a lot better after the first week or two. Initial problems are patched, key bugs are fixed, and gameplay is generally improved. I remember very well when Cyberpunk 2077 was released that many people complained about a whole litany of problems, but when I bought the game myself and tried it a couple of weeks later, I had an amazing bug-free experience. Was it a perfect game? No, but it was well worth the money. I've had that experience more recently with the Lamplighters League. It flopped on release and I didn't end up buying it until it had already been around for a month or so, but by the time I got it, the bugs were fixed, a free DLC was released, and the price was reduced by 20%. So, don't do it. Publishers will play on your fear of missing out and try and tempt you with some worthless skin or a discount on an as yet uncreated DLC, but you don't have to listen to them. If you spend $60 on pre-purchasing Discombobulators 2, then that's $60 you can't spend on a game that's actually good, and actually exists. Hi there, how do you feel about all of this? Are you a frequent pre-orderer or do you never bother? Let me know in a comment. If you enjoyed this video, then please click the like button, and if you want more of this sort of thing, then subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you back soon.